Allen Company, 47 years young and a proud sponsor, wishes OOIDA all the best as you celebrate 50 years.
OOIDA, representing America's truckers since 1973, presents Landline Now with your host, Mark Redding.
The truck parking crisis took center stage at a Senate subcommittee hearing dedicated to roadway safety on Tuesday. Senators and witnesses laid out the problem and offered up one solution that would go a long way toward addressing it. We recently spoke with OOIDA employees who have been in the Army and the National Guard about their service and what life is like after. One of the first Truckers for Troops Care Package recipients now has a son serving in the armed forces. Scott Thompson will talk with Shane Zeising. And finally, Jamie Jones, Scott Thompson, Ashley Blackford, and OOIDA membership manager Sylvia Dodson join me to discuss the Truckers for Troops effort. But first, the news with Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Mark. A Senate subcommittee held a hearing on Tuesday dedicated to roadway safety, and a familiar problem got quite a bit of attention.
We have major problems with a shortage of truck parking in the United States.
Truck parking infrastructure.
Truck parking.
Lack of available parking for long-haul truck drivers.
We need more truck parking across the nation.
The Truck Parking Safety Improvement Act.
The truck parking crisis was clearly at front of mind for members of the Subcommittee on Transportation and Infrastructure, working under the Committee on Environment and Public Works. It was a recurring theme throughout the hearing on roadway safety. Subcommittee Chair Mark Kelly of Arizona made the topic part of his opening statement, linking the issue to the hearing's focus, noting that legislation in both the House and the Senate right now would help with the truck parking crisis.
For example, it ensures that truck drivers park in safe designated spaces, not on the side of roads, which is obviously dangerous to both the trucker and other drivers. It also makes our supply chains more efficient by ensuring truck drivers don't need to conclude their days early to find a safe place to park or risk violating their hours of service. And it also helps to address broader safety and workforce recruitment trends. By ensuring a safe place to park for every truck driver, we help the industry attract a broader and more diverse driver cohort.
It's something Brenda Neville, president and CEO of the Iowa Motor Truck Association, also addressed in her opening statement and later put into broader perspective in this exchange with Senator Kelly during questioning.
We've seen record amounts of goods shipped by truck in recent years. That means more trucks on the road. And to some extent, some changing routes from where they were just a few years ago. And often that means that our existing truck parking infrastructure gets overloaded, and then drivers have to make a difficult decision of parking on the side of the road or maybe, still driving, looking for parking. I've heard this from many truck drivers when they should be resting. And that's a challenge. So one option is obviously to park on the side or find some kind of makeshift parking spots. So can you explain a little bit about why that's unsafe for drivers and why it's also unsafe for the general public?
Thank you. Before I get started with an answer, I would like to just give a little illustration of just how committed our industry is to safety. I've been doing this job for over 30 years, and one of the things I ask every CEO is what keeps them up at night. And if I were to line up 10 CEOs here today, whether they had 10,000 trucks or 10 trucks, every single one of them would say the thing that keeps them up at night that they worry about is getting their drivers home safely. And so truck parking is right into that safety equation, and it's so important. As the priority we have right now is, as I said in my opening statement, we have 313,000 parking spaces and 3.5 million drivers. So the shortage is real in every single state. And the option that truck drivers have now is if they can't find a space, they are parking on the side of the road, they're parking on an off-ramp, and tragically, we hear about what happened in Illinois. And here's another question. I think it's important as we have this discussion that you all think about, everybody in the room. How many of us would tolerate a job where access to a restroom or a safe place to park and sleep at night is no guarantee? And that's what's going on right now with truck parking. We need more truck parking across the nation. And as Senator Kelly alluded to in his question, They are forced to change their routes if they can't find parking. Oftentimes, they're spending time when they have a certain amount of hours they can drive. And when they know that those hours are about to run out, what they will do before they run out is they will start looking for a place if there's no place for them to park. That affects productivity. That impacts the supply chain over the long run. So there's many safety factors, but the one that is the most noticeable to all of us is when you're driving down the road and you see these trucks parked on the shoulders and the off-ramps. I think it's also noteworthy to highlight with the truck parking issue, this is something that impacts all of us. Law enforcement, for example, is as equally committed to finding more truck parking and equally committed to the Truck Parking Safety Improvement Act, because think of the circumstances that they deal with. They have a truck that's on the off-ramp. They can wake that driver up and move him because it's illegal, or they can let them sleep there and run the risk of an accident. So they are in a no-win situation. So
Ms.
we're very...
Neville, can I ask you, sorry to interrupt. So when somebody winds up being parked on the side of the road, it's because they couldn't find a place, they ran out of time.
Right.
So the clock, so do truck drivers tend not to go over the amount of time because that's against
It's
federal
illegal. Yeah,
against
they're
federal law.
Yes.
So they just throw their hands up. I couldn't find any place. I'm going to have to park right here.
Right. And trucks also now are equipped with electronic logging devices. So there isn't wiggle room. And that's exactly what they're doing, is they'll just park wherever they can find a place.
And that becomes a hazard. So then I've heard that there are some drivers that are now, because it's easier to find parking during the day, so they're going to drive through the night and sleep during the day. Can you talk a little bit about that and what challenges and risks that are caused by doing that?
Yeah, drivers are forced to adjust their sleeping schedule in an effort to maximize their productivity, their personal safety, their comfort, and to remain compliant with federal regulations. So that's what they have to do, is sometimes sleep during the day. And forcing these drivers to make those compromises and adjustments really creates a disincentive for potential drivers, particularly female and minority drivers. They can underpin a dynamic next generation of truckers when we don't have these kind of parking spaces and that quality of life for them when they're trying to park. I want to touch a little bit on female drivers. Only 7% of our driving force is females, and we want to attract more females to our industry. They're great drivers. This is a great career. And every female driver I've talked to, the number one thing that they cite is their fear of going to a parking place that's not well lit, where there's not security around the perimeter, where they don't feel safe. So truck parking is definitely a barrier for us to attract women and possibly other minorities into the industry.
So the problem is well established, which brings us back to the Truck Parking Safety Improvement Act, which again would allocate $755 million over 3 years to free, publicly available truck parking projects. Brenda Neville of the Iowa Motor Truck Association again called on lawmakers in the House and Senate to get behind it.
You know, we have to think outside the box. We have to be innovative. And I think that's what's so important and value about the Truck Parking Safety Improvement Act. It's very specific to truck parking. It's just to truck parking. And every state can benefit from that. And I think if we sit down with our DOT leaders and figure out where the best place is for these truck parking spots, I think that will go a long way in addressing all the issues that are related to truck parking: safety, productivity, workforce.
To get involved yourself, to call on your representatives in Congress to get behind the bills, check out fightingfortruckers.com. That's Landline Now News for today. I'm Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Scott. Next, Ashley Blackford speaks with OOIDA employees who have been in the Army and the National Guard. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
Today's rising costs affect everyone. Replace your harmonic damper with a genuine Vibertech TVD viscous damper to prevent costly repairs and downtime. Keep your money in your pocket and your truck on the road with Vibertech TVD. Recommended replacement at 500,000 miles or 15,000 hours.
Ready to make more money? Use a better load board. For a limited time, get 50% off TruckStop Load Board Pro. Just go to truckstop.com/go and enter promo code READY2023 when you purchase Load Board Pro.
Firestone tires are for more of everything. more miles for every tire dollar, and more confidence in your fleet. At Firestone, we help fleets save with dependable value. Find your local Firestone dealer today at firestonetire.com/dealer.
Welcome back to Landline Now and the annual Truckers for Troops telethon, an effort to raise money to send care packages to our troops overseas and to support homeless veterans through the Veterans Community Project.
I know you had a lot of sacrifices, and I want you to know that we all appreciate it.
Thank you so much for your service and all the sacrifices that you have made in order for us to have our freedoms.
The Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association employs more than 270 employees, and many have ties to serving our country. Shelby Inky works in the Business Services Department. He joins me now. Shelby, you served in the Army. Can you talk to me about when you enlisted and what made you decide to go that route?
I enlisted in 2006. It's just kind of a family thing. I actually wanted to be in the Army, or, well, military in general, in kindergarten. From the Afghan-Russian War. So there was a lady that I went to church with. She had a kid that she adopted, and he was Afghani. And I guess he had severe burns due to bombs and stuff during that conflict. And they brought him in for, kind of like a presentation in my kindergarten class. So ever since then, I was just like, well, I want to join the military.
Now, when you first joined the Army, what did you want to do?
I didn't really have like a plan, I guess. I wanted to, I guess, kind of be an MP, military police, but it really didn't matter, So, but I ended up being quartermaster, so I was the unit supply specialist and the unit armor. Unit armor is in charge of all the weapons and maintaining them, issuing weapons. So,
were you ever deployed?
Yeah, I deployed to Ramadi, Iraq, 2007 to 2008.
What was that like?
A roller coaster. I mean, you have your good days, you have your bad days, you have your terrible days. So, probably the first part of the tour was, I would probably say, the worst part of it. After we took back the Anbar Providence, it all kind of seemed to shut down. So, deployment was a lot easier. I mean, there were still a few attacks here and there, but not to the extent that it was at the beginning of our tour or even prior to our tour.
Was being in the Army and being deployed what you expected, or did you even know what to expect?
I really didn't know what to expect going into it. I mean, I had friends that deployed to Ramadi, Iraq. I think they were there from 2005 to 2006, so they were there during the Battle of Ramadi, which is whenever it was really, really bad. So I really didn't know what to expect necessarily. I just expected the worst, I guess. But in my mind, I expected it just to, I don't know, everything be okay. But you don't know until you get there.
And what was it like coming back home and adjusting to civilian life?
It's rough. I mean, it's probably a little bit easier. I was in the reserves. I was out of Belton, Missouri with the 603rd MP Company. So I just went there once a month, did my 2 weeks out of the year, which turned out to be a month instead of 2 weeks. But I was in basic training from 2006 to 2007, got deployed 2007 to 2008. So I was gone for a long period of time, even though I was in the reserves. So that's a long time to be away from home, away from being a normal job. So there is a difference. It's hard. I don't know. I don't really know how to explain it. It's easier being over there. So you don't have to worry about mortgage, payments, getting fired. They ain't gonna fire you. So, but adjusting, I'd say it's hard because you have a different mentality than some of the other people that you work with. So whenever you get to working with other veterans, it does make it a little bit easier to work in the workplace.
Now, this week marks our Truckers for Troops telethon, where we raise money for care packages for troops serving overseas and for the Veterans Community Project. How does it feel to work for a company that supports veterans?
Oh, it's good. I mean, any support to the military, I think, is good. it's not to the extent that it was, after 9/11 and everything, but still, I mean, there's people out there serving and sacrificing their time away from their families and loved ones that, they do still need that support, whether they're in a war zone or, at a base here in the United States, So, no, I think that's good, especially like the homelessness one. Yeah, I mean, that's a big part of helping veterans out. That's something they need because it'll help them get jobs too. They have a place to live and an address and, somewhere to kick off their shoes and, live.
That was Shelby Inky talking about his experience in the Army. Cheyenne Wilson joins me now. She is a claims representative at OOIDA. Cheyenne, you served in the Army National Guard. Can you talk to me about that experience?
I enlisted before I was out of high school. I enlisted in December of 2016 and was in until June of 2022. So I'm still on my IRR, so I have another year in the inactive reserve. But I got into that. I didn't really know what I wanted to do after high school, so I decided I would do that because if anything happened and I decided I wanted to go to college, they would pay for it. I didn't go to college. I liked it though. It was a good time. You make a lot of good friends. You get a connection with people that you don't really get from anything else. It's a different kind of connection.
What were some of the things that you got to do?
I was always a machine gunner. Every unit I was at, I was always assigned a machine gunner, so I got to carry around a saw. So that was pretty cool. I didn't get to go on any deployments. I did a lot of extra stuff. I ended up recruiting for about a year and a half. I was military police, so my MOS was 31 Bravo. I did a lot of training for that. Go do room raids, all that stuff. We did a lot of fun stuff. We went paintballing a lot, too. That was a good time.
What do you feel you learned over the course of those 6 years?
I learned that all good things have to end. It's pretty sad. You learn what a true friend is, who's really going to stick around through thick and thin. Build a lot of good relationships. People that understand you a little bit better than anyone else, because if you haven't been in the military, you don't have the same understanding to what it's like, I guess. Even not being deployed or anything, your brain changes a little bit after you go.
Do you find a lot of people almost forget that there's still people serving?
Yes. And I think that they forget that they still go through a lot of struggles, even if they aren't necessarily going to war, because it's a completely different environment coming back to civilian life after you've not been in it. So it's a lot harder to make connections. You don't feel like you fit in anywhere at that point. So
why do you think it's so important to support the men and women who serve?
I think that's really important because, I mean, they would literally get shot for you. So, most people that enlist would definitely take a bullet for just about anyone. So it means a lot to have someone willing to put in effort and everything to make sure that you're getting what you need still because something has happened that has made you incapable of doing what you need to do to be able to get the things that you need. I think that's a big thing. And, I don't know how much, on the mental health side you go with that, but I know a lot of people need mental health things because it's weird. Your brain's weird after that.
Now, I'm sure you can't just go to any counselor or therapist for help. It's likely better to talk to someone who understands. Is that right?
Yes. And it helps to have a counselor that deals with people that have been in the military and everything. That's their specialty, is seeing people that were in the military, because then they have a better idea of why you're feeling the way you're feeling or something like that. So it definitely helps to see someone that has experience with veterans.
Now, what would you say to a person who wants to support someone who has served, but they have no experience themselves?
Let them know that they're not alone. They're not forgotten about, even though they aren't in anymore, or even if they are in, they're not forgotten about, because I think that happens to a lot of people. People come home and they aren't in contact with the same people that they used to be. So it's easy to feel like you've been forgotten by all of your past life. Which some cases that might be a good thing, other cases it's not, and then you feel very alone and isolated.
That was Cheyenne Wilson talking about her service in the Army National Guard. Louis Pugh joins me now. He is the Executive Vice President for OOIDA. Thank you for coming in, Louis.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's my pleasure.
I want to talk to you about Truckers for Troops, but more specifically, talking about the time you served. Can you talk to me about what you did and when that was?
Seems like a long time ago nowadays. But yeah, I was a motor transport operator or truck driver. So in the Army, mainly drove like a Class 8 tractor trailers. When I first joined, I drove the Hets and hauled Army tanks, like big heavy haul kind of stuff. And then we were transferred into a fuel tanker line haul unit and had like sort of like class, well, they were Freightliners, kind of like what you see on the road back then, FLD 120 Freightliners and fuel tankers and hauled fuel.
What made you decide to get into the Army?
My family's always been in the military. My grandfather was in World War II, a veteran of World War II, and then I had relative family in World War I and the Civil War and the Mexican-American War all the way back. So it's just sort of a family thing, I guess you would say. I mean, we all serve our country, and I left the day after I graduated high school. Actually, I mean, I graduated on the 4th, and on the 5th, I reported to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, for basic training.
Wow. What year ago was that? Couldn't have been too long ago, right?
1992.
1992. What do you feel like you learned from your time serving that helped you, not only in your trucking career, but just in life in general?
How to deal with people. I say that all the time. My grandfather told me that when I was going to leave. I come from southeastern Ohio, Appalachia. We're kind of cliquey there, I guess, and, I was fortunate enough to have grandparents that took me places and stuff, traveled. So I knew a little bit. I'd come out of the holla, but, I learned when I went to basic training, there was people there from all over the United States. I learned real quick that most people don't call Coca-Cola pop, they call it soda. Because when I said something about pop, I looked like I had 3 heads. But, so yeah, I guess that was my main thing. I met people from, I actually met people from other countries that were here, that were owned by America, like down in Virgin Islands, different places like that I served with. And but that was the biggest thing. Mm-hmm. Learning, I've always been, I played basketball and different things. I was in 4-H FFA, so I understand teamwork and all that kind of stuff. That was no big deal. But I was always with my own kind, I guess you would say. And so it was nice to get out and really learn and how to deal with people and learn that people are different and embrace that. And I say that to this day.
And can you talk to me lastly about, you're at OOIDA now working, and we have other veterans that are here working as well. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, it's a great place. I mean, trucking is just a big veteran catch-all anyway. Lots of veterans in trucking. But yeah, there's quite a few veterans here I'm friends with here at OOIDA. I mean, I feel like I'm friends with everybody at OOIDA. But yeah, and I mean, one guy that's here, he's a veteran, and him and I ride motorcycles and go on trips and some together with some other groups. And usually it's just me and him are the only 2 veterans in the group. So that's kind of cool. And we actually... last year we went to New Orleans on a bike trip, and we spent Memorial Day at the World War II Museum, and he was along, and that was cool.
Nice. All right. Louis, thank you so much for coming in.
Hey, thanks for having me, as always.
That was Louis Pugh talking about his time in the Army. For Landline Now, I'm Ashley Blackford.
Thanks, Ashley. We'll be back in a moment with more of Truckers for Troops. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
From all of us here at OOIDA, we appreciate your service.
Thank you. We appreciate everything you do.
Control your toll costs and eliminate tolling headaches with Prepass Tolls. Prepass Tolls means toll volume discounts. Just one invoice for all tolls and fewer violations. Call 877-878-5970 or go to prepass.com.
Attention all truckers, Dean Michael, the tax doctor here. I want to talk to you about those dreaded tax problems. I know you want to keep on trucking and not even think about them, but let's face it, they're not going away all on their own. You need professional help. I've been helping truckers put their tax problems in the rearview mirror for years. I can help you too. Call me now for a free consultation at 888-557-4020 or go to mytaxhelpmd.com. It's like I always say, keep your eyes on the road, I'll keep mine on the IRS. 888-557-4020.
It's tested and proven. Burn 2.1% less fuel when you balance all wheel ends with Centromatic. Call 800-523-8473 to get the OOIDA discount.
Welcome back to Landline Now and the annual Truckers for Troops telethon.
I'm a veteran. My dad was a veteran in Vietnam, so kind of know what y'all been through or going through, and thank you so much for your service.
Welcome back to Landline Now and our 17th annual Truckers for Troops telethon. When OOIDA started this campaign back in 2007, the main focus was on care packages that were sent out to our troops stationed overseas. Shane Zeising, now a veteran of the Army National Guard, was among the very first to receive one of those care packages. He was deployed with the Army National Guard in Iraq at the time, and although Zeising admits to not remembering the particulars of when that care package arrived, he definitely remembers what was inside and what it meant.
The ones that stand out the most to me it was kind of silly, but over there, the silly things kind of meant the most. Like cappuccinos that you could press the bottom of them, and it was like the heating device on the bottom of them, so it could heat that way, so you could have a hot, like, cappuccino. That was one thing. Probably the main thing I remember. We got some cards, some games that, just little games that we could do to help pass the time when we weren't out on mission, which was very rare. But it was just when we left because we couldn't, due to really any kind of constraints that we had. But the main thing that stood out to me was the cappuccinos that you could heat, had the heating device.
I think that's noteworthy too, because I can't imagine the coffee. I can't imagine, one, that the coffee over there is going to be too great. And then number two, you're drinking the same stuff pretty much every day, right? I mean, so that was like a luxury item, I would imagine, back then.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All we were drinking was water.
Yeah.
Water's good for you, but it's when you're not a big fan of water anyway, it's kind of hard.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard. You have to force yourself.
Yeah,
So,
you want some variety for sure. I mean, talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
Just the idea, and you talked about those two things in particular. For someone maybe who hasn't, been deployed, who hasn't served, who hasn't been overseas like that, so far away from home, putting yourself in dangerous situations, day in and day out, just the idea of getting a package. And I know there's a lot of stuff in these packages that people get. Some of it is, stuff that they need. Some of the, as you kind of mentioned, there's luxury items that really kind of break the monotony or make you kind of give you a moment of levity or something like that. But can you talk about what it means to get a package like that for someone who is overseas? And again, doing dangerous work, monotonous work on in some cases, just what that feeling is like to see that package come through.
It's a real good feeling. It reminds you that there's people back home that think about you and that you're on their minds and stuff like that. And that you're actually over there with a purpose, I guess, doing a meaningful job. It's a thankless job at the time, but there's still meaning to it. And you get when you're over there, you're by yourself. You've got the guys that you've deployed with, and that's your family. And you tend to, I guess, I wouldn't say lose touch with reality, but lack of better terms, you lose touch with reality, and you are over there and you don't think about the little things going on back home the little things that are going on back home, because you're over there to do a job, you're over there for a mission. And like when I was over there, my job was incredibly, incredibly dangerous. And, there were multiple times that I didn't know I was going to make it out alive. And when I would get back and I would see that package there, and it was more than just an envelope, his actual care package that was full of envelopes, full of letters and full of material things. That was great. It was great to realize that you are loved back home. Make sense?
Yeah, makes total sense. And I think part of the beauty of these packages too is, when a lot of people get care packages over there, typically, I imagine it's for just them, right? It's little things from home that might remind them of home, and again, to let them know that people are thinking about them and caring about them. These packages, as we have talked about so many times over the years, are huge. I mean, they're big packages, and it's not just for the person getting it, right? It's for the entire troop, right? It's for everybody else that's in that same situation. I imagine the reaction amongst your comrades there was equally exciting, right? I'm sure they were excited to see what was inside those packages as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Because a lot of the guys, they wouldn't get packages, from anybody. They wouldn't get a package. They wouldn't get a letter, anything from anybody because, they were a 19-year-old single guy, and his parents wouldn't get a hold of him or whatever the situation was. So when they would get that, it was, you could see the joy and the excitement and the pleasure on their face, all of them. Because like I said, there were so many that didn't get anything. They wouldn't get a letter, a package, nothing. And when they'd see me coming back from the talk where all our packages would go to, they would see me walking back with this big old box full of all kinds of stuff, and we would open it up and just start digging through it and throwing stuff everywhere, and it was great. Guys it was kind of a free for all. When I would deliver it, I didn't I didn't ration it to anybody. I said, "Hey, first come, first serve. Let's go." So,
yeah,
and everybody appreciated that.
That's a huge morale booster, as you kind of have talked about there. You got more than one package, right? We talked about that first one that you got and a couple items in there, but do you remember how many packages roughly you got over the years?
I got one, and I know my mom, my sister, probably they're both going to kick me in the butt for this, but I believe one of the packages from Truckers for Troops, maybe not. I could have this mixed up. Had wigs in it. Have you heard this one?
I think I've heard it, but please tell it. Yeah.
Okay, so we got wigs, and I want to say maybe I had gotten a hold of my mom, and I asked her if she would send wigs over, and so this one was, I guess this was my 2007 deployment because I was on a route clearance team back then, and we'd go out and we'd look for all the IEDs and roadside bombs and stuff. So, that was incredibly dangerous. So me being a squad leader and platoon sergeant at the time, I was like, okay, we've got to lighten the tension somehow. If you know my sister, she would tell you, I'm kind of a jokester and I don't take a whole lot seriously.
Yeah.
Even when I probably should take it seriously, I don't. Because to me, there's more pleasure in laughing than there is being, scared out of your minds.
Yeah.
So let's try and ease some of this tension. So I had my mom send a bunch of wigs over. So she did, and there were all kinds of wigs. So we would wear the wigs out on mission. we wear it outside the wire, and it probably wasn't the best thing to do coming from, it was probably, I should say, it was probably frowned upon coming from higher, but
yeah.
Over there, I didn't really care.
Yeah.
It kept the morale of my guys up, and that was my main mission, was the morale of my troops and bringing all my troops home. So, and I did both. So I'm proud to say that. So
I imagine you got some weird looks from people that saw you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Was there also a story about silly string? Is that something that you got as well? And I think you actually made good use of that on missions, right?
Yeah. So silly string, it was used, and I believe. I don't see why it would change it. I believe it's still used. You can use. There's other modes of detection as well, but silly string, it was when we would go into clear buildings. You could use silly string. You could spray silly string, and it would land on tripwires. So, and it wasn't, obviously it wasn't heavy enough to set off that booby trap. So we could detect booby traps that way with the silly string landing on the tripwires. And that helped. We used it a little bit, and we had detected some booby traps that way. So it was effective. So, and that was one thing that if I remember, I actually had my mom send over as well.
Yeah.
That was one thing I requested.
Your son, Colton, I think, is serving now, right?
Yes, sir.
I imagine that kind of puts things in perspective. You're obviously looking at it in a different light now, going from being the one who served to having a son that now does. I'm sure you're proud of him. Can you talk about what he does and also, again, how it kind of puts things in perspective for you, having gone through it and now seeing things from the other side of it, having a loved one potentially in harm's way?
He joined right out of high school. I'm embarrassed to say, but 5 years ago, maybe.
Okay.
So either way, he joined and joined the infantry. Didn't like the infantry, so he switched to be a dog handler. He just recently switched. So he's now training bomb dogs and drug dogs. I'm incredibly proud of him. But as far as me being worried about him being in harm's way, absolutely not. He, in my opinion, his mom would tell you a different story. But in my opinion, he was built for this just because he's grown up around it. With me being in, and I taught him 90% of the stuff that he went into basic training knowing. And he was very grateful for that, and he's very good at it. And so I pride myself on that as well, is just him wanting to follow in my footsteps. He said he wanted to join the military because his grandparents joined and I was in the military, and he wanted to carry, the tradition. So I was proud of that. So from the time that I found out that he was wanting to join, I said, all right, we've got this to learn and this to learn and this to learn, and I'll tell you what not to do. I'll tell you what's going to get you in trouble, and I'll tell you how to get out of trouble. So he was a sponge, but I'm incredibly proud of him. Yeah. And he's looking forward to getting deployed somewhere.
Yeah. And would give you all an opportunity to send him a care package like you all got when you were serving as well. As we kind of close things out here, Shane, just maybe a message for our listeners and the importance maybe of giving what they can right now, not just to help with these care packages, but for helping our veterans who have come home and need a little help getting back on their feet and are getting it thanks to the Veterans Community Project. What would you say for people out there who are thinking maybe about giving a little bit of money to help out?
It's worth it, and it's definitely for a good cause. And everybody, all the recipients of whatever it is are incredibly grateful. And you have to remember, these are the guys that lay their lives on the line for the country, and they do it selflessly, and they do it on a volunteer basis. They're not drafted into this. They chose to join the military and put their lives on the line and put their civilian lives on hold, put their family life on hold to go and serve their country and do their due diligence to this country. So it's in our best interest to take care of the veterans. They've built this country or they pointed it in the right direction and they've served honorably.
Our thanks once again to Shane Zeising. A couple quick reminders here. One, that we are accepting names for troops serving overseas we can send care packages to. You can call that in to Nikki Johnson at OOIDA at 816-229-5791. That's the very same phone number to use to donate, 816-229-5791. Or you can donate online as well at ooida.com. We've got to take a short break, but there's more Landline Now right around the corner. Stick around.
To all the men and women service people out there protecting us every day, thank you again.
We appreciate all the efforts that you guys have made, and happy Veterans Day.
Since you started, what you've loved about trucking is the freedom. Heading out on your favorite route, a good driving song, and thinking about truck insurance. Well, maybe not that last one. That's why we're here. At OOIDA, we have a full range of truck insurance products, expert advice, and great customer service, helping you get the right coverage for your operation. Go to OOIDA.com because your job is to drive. Our job is to help with everything else.
Landline now. Welcome back. I'm here in Studio A with Jamie Jones, Scott Thompson, Ashley Blackford, and Sylvia Dodson, who is the manager of OOIDA's membership department. And of course, we are talking here about Truckers for Troops. And before we get into our discussion, just to remind you, you can take part in this by calling 816-229-5791 or by going to OOIDA.com. There is a donate button and a become a member button on there. You can use either one of those to take part in Truckers for Troops. And Scott, Ashley, we just had some great stories from the two of you about people who have served, and I think that's a real key here.
Yes, I know for me, we just heard from Shelby, Cheyenne, Louie. There's a lot of people here at OOIDA that have served. One of the things that really stood out from talking to these three, and I'll include Louie in here, and he'll appreciate that, I'm sure. But just how young these guys are. Shelby, a young man. I don't know.
He doesn't even look like he's much out of high school. I mean,
and Cheyenne, when you think of a veteran, I don't think our minds go to what these individuals
petite,
look
young
like.
female model looking.
Yeah. And
young.
So that was really interesting. Yeah,
and it kind of strikes me too when I think about this, and I think about the stories that we had today about the through line that is OOIDA in this campaign, which has been going on for 16, 17 years now. And I talked to Shane Zeising, who was one of the very first people to get a care package.
Yes, he was. Yeah.
And he talked about what a morale boost it is for the troops to get these care packages. He talked about the practicality of it, things like the cappuccino pods or whatever those were.
Self-heating coffees, yeah.
Socks, loved them. Those things obviously that people can use. And then you've got the fun aspect of it too, like wigs, he talked about that. And silly string, which seems fun, but they ended up using it to locate tripwires. So it turned into a very important, in a lot of ways, potentially a life-saving type thing.
Yep.
So it's really cool to see, again, the through line, I think, through all these years. And the feeling that Shane got through all these care packages is the same feeling that people are getting now when they get these care packages. So, again, the through line from the start of this thing to where we are now, and you talked about OOIDA and all the people here that have this connection to our military members, it really is something, and it really is, I think, profound in a lot of ways.
Well, and I think what's so special about Shane for a lot of us is he was one of the first recipients of care packages, and now his son serves.
Yep.
And so, I mean, we've got the generational thing. We've been doing this so long. We've got kids. Kids. So I think that brings it home in another respect. But so Shane talked about wigs and silly string. He didn't tell the squirt gun story.
No squirt gun story, no.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I have to tell the squirt gun story. So one year we included squirt guns in the care packages. Again, it's meant to be practical, but have some fun elements so they can have that mental escape from the reality that they're in. These ding-dongs in Shane's unit decided to fill these squirt guns with like aqua velva. And had a
undiluted.
Undiluted.
As one would do.
They had a squirt gun fight in their barracks. Can you imagine the stench that was?
For a long time.
I mean,
that stuff lasted.
They probably tore down those buildings.
It may still be there, that smell.
Definitely.
But they did have fun. I just, that's one of my favorite stories to tell about the care packages.
It's amazing. Those things have just been wonderful for those members of the service, and they're so appreciative of them.
Oh, yes, they are.
Really, very much. Sylvia, you've got family members who are serving right now.
I do. My son-in-law and my daughter, they're stationed in Great Falls, Montana right now with the Air Force. And my grandbabies are up there. But anyway, that's a long ways away from Missouri.
But, the thing is, when we started all this, they were kids.
Yep.
I mean, they were...
My daughter used to help us do the packages and the cards and letters and stuff and everything that produced from that week back when she was a Girl Scout.
Yeah.
Full circle.
Full circle.
Yeah.
And it's just funny because, my kids have helped put the care packages together because we
Yes.
don't pay anybody to do this stuff.
Nope, we do it all ourselves.
We do it all ourselves. And, we're not afraid to put child labor behind us.
And they had a blast. The kids would have a blast. They would.
We all did. And now we have VCP. And while it was a lot of fun to do the weird stuff in the care packages, now getting the opportunity to go down to VCP, the Veterans Community Project, the tiny home community, and see all the good they're doing there and to meet the people who are benefiting from it. That
It's
hits you in the
amazing.
feel. It's a different emotional
Yes,
high.
it is.
It's something that you realize how profound this cause is that Truckers for Troops now benefits.
And you talk about full circle too. We were taking care of the troops overseas. Now this campaign is helping to take care of the veterans who do come home and who need a little bit of extra help, who have found themselves in a tough spot. And the VCP does incredible work out there to make sure that they are cared for and to help them get from this temporary housing to permanent housing and all the services they provide. We keep using the word profound, but it really is profound, the work that they're doing there.
Well, I think it's just you have to remember that not everybody has a smooth transition from the service back to real life. And even if they have families, that may not be strong enough because a lot of times it's about that community aspect. And the tiny home community, you can get online and look at it, and it's just beautiful to look at. And there's all these decorative tiny homes and everything, but they have a community center, and that's the heartbeat of the place. And that's where you have current residents meeting with people who are just veterans from the community who need a place where they can go and share that common
ground.
Yeah, that common ground, that common existence. And they can speak that language with each other. And then they have alumni even. They call them alumni once they have graduated out of the system.
They come back in.
They come back in and contribute to it. And then they've got their pets and everything else.
And a dog park out there for them and the Zen garden. There's a Zen garden. It was pretty cool. It was pretty cool.
I like what some of the folks say, and I've heard this from several of the people who work there. The first veteran they saved was themselves.
Yes.
And that in itself, again, profound. We are going to overuse that word, I think, this week.
I just don't know. We're word nerds, but I don't know how you describe it any better when you really get around it and you walk in and you're thinking, oh, yeah, we're going to see all these veterans that are getting helped out. And then, again, it's a bunch of 20-year-olds who are had a hard time adjusting, if you will. They run the age range, and their needs are all different. And VCP is wily, and they're great at connecting with the services that they need from, just how to get a job, how to manage your finances, everything they could possibly need. They have a resource to meet that need, including the vet care for their animal, which they're allowed to bring with them into the community.
A lot of them, too, though, had an issue trying to get everything connected to the VA.
Mm-hmm.
That was the biggie.
And they help with that.
And they help with that. They
Navigating
get
the
all
VA.
the paperwork taken care of, the DD-14s or whatever they're called, and they get all that paperwork set up and filed for them and show them how to do it and basically just walk through the process.
Yeah, unless you've been through the paperwork hell, it's too daunting for a lot of people. So I think
government.
They're here to help.
We get one, they ask for 100,
Yeah. And of course, there's been a lot as far as efforts beyond just donating money. Truckers for Troops has done a lot more than that. And Sylvia, you've been out there on volunteer days, on commissary days.
Yes. We go out there and try to volunteer as much as we can and pack boxes, and we pack backpacks, get those sent out for them. We load up trash barrels downstairs for the building and take those out on
full of food, not trash.
Full of food. Sorry. Thank you very much.
And other goodies, not just food, too.
But everything you can think of, we try to be a part of that to make their lives easier and better.
Okay. Well, folks, we're coming to the end of the show today, but we want to remind you again, this is the Truckers for Troops telethon. You can take part by calling 816-229-5791 or going to ooida.com. Again, 816-229-5791 or go to ooida.com. Once again, I'm here with Jamie Jones, Scott Thompson, Ashley Blackford, and Sylvia Dodson of OOIDA's membership department. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
I'm a dad,
a son,
a husband,
wife,
I'm a writer,
photographer.
I farm.
I'm a veteran.
I love old cars, fishing,
my kids,
chrome,
and I am
a professional truck driver.
And together we are OOIDA.
OOIDA was founded by truckers to stand up and speak on behalf of truckers. We've done that by combining the individual voices of our members into a single, powerful voice. Protecting your interests, defending your rights.
Join us!
Make your voice heard. Join OOIDA, the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association. Call 1-800-444-5791 or visit OOIDA.com.